Well, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for coming today. It's such a pleasure to be here to represent Ally Coffee as the bronze sponsor of the PRF. And first of all, Henry, Tati, Julio, everybody at the PRF team, thank you so much for putting this event together. For me, it's truly unique. It connects so well with what we do at Ally Coffee, of putting roasters and producers together in one place and connect them. Today we're going to be talking about matching supply and demand, something we do with Ally Coffee every single day. It's going to be a jam-packed 20 minutes. I asked Emery for 1.5 hours. He didn't give it to me, but we're going to get it all in today, hopefully. So shortly, we'll do a brief introduction, and then we're going to look at 3 things. Supply on one side, the production, and demand, the roasters and the consumption on the other side. And towards the end, we'll do an exercise and put this together. But first of all, why am I here today? Originally, I'm from the Netherlands, but the last 7 years, I've been working at Origin with hundreds of producers across the world. Nowadays, I'm the sourcing manager for Ally Coffee. And Ally Coffee is a green coffee company connecting roasters and producers through our partnerships around the world. We've got people in all these places, and they help us to connect on-site with the producers and in the consumption country with the roasters as well. So to dive into it, looking at the supply side, how can we categorize green coffee? And actually, there are many, many ways to do this. These 3 here are the most common ones. And looking at the first one, standardized grades, it looks something like this. And this is quite common in commodity coffee. You can get a big spreadsheet with regions, types of coffee, a price comes out. Here on the right, we have descriptions such as Colombia Excelso, Nicaragua SHG, Peru MCM Grade 1, and they will give you a price, even within a country. Brazil, 2 free, 17, 18, fine cup. This all tells you something about a coffee. But at the same time, it does not tell you very much either. Nowadays, we work like this much more, which is quality-based pricing. So a cup and a coffee, and then more or less saying, how much is this worth? Here we have our team in Costa Rica, Bram and Emmanuel, cupping with Eduardo Navarro. And we often cup together with producers, we try their harvest, and then we're able to put a price on a coffee. This data nowadays is even compiled by the Specialty Coffee Transaction Guide. You can look in this guide, say 85-point coffee, 20 bags, boom, there's a price. However, although this is the status quo, I think we can improve upon this and move forward. So let's talk about value over quality. On the screen here are 3 people who have inspired me a lot in my journey with Ally Coffee. And they've all 3 shown me how they create value at their farms, communicate about it, and are able to capture much more money for that in return. We've got Napo and his family, Flor and Dulce Maria in Honduras. They have a biodynamic farm. They do chromatography there. And really, they treat their land so differently, connect with it in such a different way, that I was so inspired when I visited the farm. I invited roasters there, and we were able to make that connection and say, wow, it's not that this coffee tastes good. I mean, it does taste very good, but that's not the only thing. There's so much more to it. As well with Jorge and his amazing forests. He has 21 hectares of forest and 3 hectares of coffee. He uses the forest to gain microorganisms from the soil, apply that to his coffee, and then through that, create a much more sustainable production model. Everybody who has visited his farm fell in love, and his coffee, again, it is great coffee, but it's not the only thing about it. And finally, we have Katia here on the other side. She's been able to work with women producers in Copan Ruinas and show them how they can set themselves apart. Again, connect with roasters, show them the higher value, and make transactions based on that. But what is value? And this is a big question. We just saw it before as well in the last presentation. And I'm going to walk you through it. So I've been able to study this in university some years ago. And again, you can look at in many different ways. You can look at value. This is just one way. So the first type of value is functional. When we talk about functional value, this is when you make rational decisions with objectivity. Things such as quality, the convenience of buying something, and the price are all rational decisions. On the other hand, symbolic value is much more abstract. In coffee, things such as traceability, transparency, the branding, you cannot quantify that. However, you can value it. And finally, there's the value in sustainability, or the value of social contribution. It does not give me individually anything, but is for the greater good of the whole community. Now, all these things, we can apply this to green coffee, and that can help us to understand the supply of green coffee much better. So in the functional value, of course, quality is very important. And again, this is not only cup and score. It's also how does the coffee look? How stable is it? In convenience, where is the coffee? Is it in parchment on a farm in Honduras, or is it green coffee that's available in a warehouse in Hamburg? Again, very different things that all add to a total value proposition of a coffee. Price-wise, how much risk is there in a price? When do I need to pay for my coffee? Again, the final price is part, but there's so much more to it. Traceability, of course. Where does a coffee come from? If you do not know where a coffee comes from, you cannot even get to the other parts of the symbolic value. So traceability really is the starting point, and from there you can work on transparency. And what does transparency mean for me? If you're in a transparent relationship, you know what the challenges are of somebody, but you also know what the opportunities are. And if you're able to work on these together as a roaster, a producer, or an importer, you can really create trust, commitment, and that will give you a lot of stability in your relationships, which that again can help you with improving the functional values. And finally, the branding. Is this an award-winning farm? Maybe it's 1 Cup of Excellence, barista competitions, the packaging, the social media, it all adds up as well. Finally, in sustainability, of course, there's the economic, environmental, social sustainability. Economic, basically, is this farm a profitable business? Environmentally, can they produce without doing harm? And socially, the people who work there, are they able to work safely, happily, and will they continue to work there for many years to come? Now, all this together, 36 points, gives us roughly an idea of what types of supply of coffee out there. So one type of coffee could have 1 or all of these points. Now, how does that relate to the demand side, to the market? And every day, billions of cups of coffee are drunk. And of course, these are not all going to be the same. They're going to be quite different. People will like to drink a hand brew. Other people will walk into the supermarket and buy their coffee there. And yet somebody else will have a cappuccino, maybe take it to go. So all these people drinking different types of coffee, these consumers are going to have different values, and they're going to choose coffee based on that. And it's the roaster's job to identify these consumers, identify the values they want, and then finally find a green coffee that matches that. So looking a little bit more specifically for the roasters, so we saw different consumers drink coffee in a different way, and they also have access to coffee in different ways. There's the retail business, so this is when a roaster sells directly to a consumer, maybe through an owned and operated coffee shop, e-commerce platform. And there's wholesale, where a roaster sells a big bulk of coffee, and then somebody else resells it for them. This again can be coffee shops, restaurants, distributors such as supermarkets. And each segment will have different pros and cons. So if you're selling retail, you are directly in touch with the consumer. So it will be much more easy for you to engage with them, communicate with them, and share these values. As well, you maintain control of your product, and generally this has a higher margin. On the wholesale side, of course, there's more volume, there's lower margins. Most roasters will engage with this as well. However, you must understand there's yet again another intermediary in the equation, and that will make it harder for you to connect with the product, harder for the consumers to connect with the product. Now, let's put these two things together in the marketplace. So it's very important to understand that the coffee is sold many, many times. First in the field, then some samples end up at a roastery, and finally a consumer will wake up and decide how to drink a coffee that day and which coffee to drink. So with all this information, we're going to do a brief exercise. So I put on the screen here some examples from roasteries. And we're going to work today with roaster number 1. This is a relatively big size specialty coffee roastery, 20 containers a year. They sell to the Whole Foods statewide. They work with a very nice boutique hotel there. They have some coffee shops and a pretty good program as well. Now, these are all fictitious roasters. And on the next slide, we'll look at some fictitious producers. But of course, I've had my inspirations in the last couple of years. I wanted to talk about the other 2 as well, but Henry, again, he didn't let me stay here for 2 hours. Now the producers. These, again, 3 different types of producers, and they will deliver different types of values. So we have a co-op in Honduras. This is an accumulation of small producers, maybe a couple hectares each one. They produce certified coffee. They got a good partnership for exportation, and they mostly produce 84 and 82-point coffees. We got a big estate in Costa Rica. They also produce quite some volume. They're RFA certified, and they're very well integrated. They've developed this whole portfolio of 80 to 88-point coffees. And finally, of course, we have to honor El Salvador. So we came up with this nice family farm. They've got 40 hectares. They buy some cherries from their neighbors, their family members, and they produce some nice washed honeys and even some nanolots as well. Now, this is where it gets a little bit dense. We're going to try to put this all together. So remember the roaster from Kansas City? I came up with that they have 4 segments: e-commerce, coffee shops, supermarkets, hotel chains. Now let's see, in the general rule, what values will this roaster look for in these different markets? E-commerce. Of course, the functional value is going to be very important. This is a specialty coffee roaster, so they want to deliver quality. The price is going to matter. The location of the green coffee is going to matter as well. The symbolic values, these are all important. Where does it come from? What is happening at the farm? And how can I market this? And finally, in the sustainability, as a specialty coffee roastery, they really care a lot about making sure that the farmer makes a decent living. However, they notice that online, they don't get a lot of questions about the environmental and social part. Now, they also have coffee shops. And here things maybe change a little bit. We can see here on the functional value that now stability is also important, as well as logistics, volatility. Because in the coffee shop, they want to be able to offer a very stable, consistent product. And they cannot change the price every day. E-commerce, maybe you can put up a bag for $8 a bag, another one for 10, but in a coffee shop serving beverages, this is much harder. Again, symbolic values are all very important. Maybe packaging not so much anymore, as they're just serving beverages. And sustainability, let's say that in coffee shops, consumers tend to engage much more with their baristas than online, and they actually get more questions about environmental sustainability there as well. And in the supermarket, things really start to change. So we can see here that functional value is now much more important. So supermarkets are very difficult people to work with. They have a lot of requirements, demands, financing terms, and the roaster needs to adapt to that. So when they get these requests from the supermarket, they're going to look at green coffee in a very different way, and they're going to request different things as well. And with that, symbolic value kind of falls to the background. Packaging is still important, of course, but in the supermarket, again, consumers have a much shorter time span. They're not thinking about coffee so deeply, and they want to make quick decisions. Again, I said it was a Whole Foods, so we're going to say that here the environmental sustainability for the specialty coffee roaster is actually important as well. Now, finally, for the example, we have the hotel chain, and this is a really nice hotel, and they want it all. They care about everything, and they really want their guests to have a very good experience at the hotel. Now, how is this going to come together with those producers we saw? Let's have a look. So here we can see in the e-commerce business, I hope everybody can see this okay. They can buy a whole bunch of different coffees. This platform is really quite open. Different people will Google buy specialty coffee Kansas City, and then they need to cater to quite a wide market. So they've got the coffee from Honduras. Here, they bought from the co-op, but they decided to buy out the non-certified lot, as people don't really ask about that online. And then all the other coffees, they've got a couple of different options there as well. In the coffee shop, instead, the environmental sustainability is important. So again, they go with a co-op, but now it's organic certified. As well, they want to have something nice on the brew bar, so they took some microlots from El Salvador. Finally, in the supermarket, only one coffee could supply this segment, which was the cooperative in Honduras. They've got that organic certification the supermarket is talking about, but also, if we look back very far, they had a partnership with an exporter, so they can actually hedge a coffee, provide all these different things the roaster is going to need to think about the risk as well. So supermarket, the options are much smaller. The hotel chain, again, these were the ones that were most demanding on the sustainability part. So again, they come back to the co-op, but now they need a fair trade organic coffee. However, this hotel chain, they also want to provide an amazing experience to their guests. So to supplement that, they also went with a state in Costa Rica that still had that RFA certification, and were also able to provide a nano lot. So this is just a big example, of course, and this could play out many different ways, with different producers, with different roasters. But the takeaway today is that there is so much value at origin, and there are so many different markets. If we are able, as roasters and producers and importers, to identify what value do I have, how can I create this value, how can we co-create value, how can we communicate about this value, how can we engage with each other, and then find the best market segment for each coffee. So I believe every coffee has a home, and it's our job to find the best segment for each one and generate the most value in return for the producer as well. And with Ally Coffee, we do this every single day, and we're so happy to be here. Again, thank you, Henry. And any questions? I have a couple minutes left, and I'll be here all day as well. Preguntas. Jonathan.
Bueno, Bram, felicidades por la presentación, espectacular. Mi pregunta es que me podrías relevar en qué porcentaje de puntajes tenéis ventas de cafés de entre 80 y 85 puntos y de cafés entre 85 y 90 puntos.
No te pude escuchar muy bien.
¿Me puedes decir qué porcentaje de ventas tenéis de cafés de entre 80 y 85 puntos y de 85 y 90 puntos?
Sí.
En Ali, por favor.
Sí, este dato lo sacamos hace unos 2 meses para una conferencia en Alemania. Y era, no te lo tengo exacto, pero creo que los mercados de Europa y Estados Unidos eran muy diferentes, pero en Europa era aproximadamente un 60% arriba de 84, que fue el límite que pusimos, un 40% de 80, 84. En Estados Unidos era más como 25-30% arriba de 84 y un 70-75 puntos, 70 a 75% de 80-84 puntos.
Thank you.